Spine and Sport Physical Therapy.
Train like the pros, my friends.
This GSI Basketball Spotlight brought to you by the Missouri National Guard.
The first thing that I want to say is that the reason I waited, or I'm making this announcement at this time, I would have done it earlier, except that our football team was on such a great run. I didn't feel like it was we needed to have anything to do with me or what was going on in my life or anything else at that time. I think we thoroughly enjoyed what the football team went through and what they did for Missouri Western, and now I feel like it is the right time. I was really fine with this until I just met with the players, and all right, probably the hardest part. I'm really not that sad. I'm not. Honest to God, I really feel really good about it. I told the players I really want to enjoy this year, and I can't unless you've ever coached. You don't know the feeling that I've gone through over 1,000 times with that many games. Everybody in here who has coached, it's that sick feeling that goes with, being judged a success or a failure by what those, kids in the short pants do out there on the floor. It's something that, unless you've done it, I've always compared coaching to flying an airplane. You don't do it all that often, but you better damn well do it well when you do it. And I think that's the thing that I remember about this. Yesterday, a man died in Tulsa, Oklahoma. His name's Ken Trickey. When Ken died, every man that I'd ever worked for has now passed away. And one of those men last year was Gene Bartow. And I owe everything to this man. He did so much for me all the way through my career, from Central Missouri to Valparaiso to Missouri Western. This has been an absolutely wonderful 25 years, and there's some people in the room that have been with me through this whole thing. And I am so grateful for that. I think the thing that is most important to me, and I know everybody in the end will remember 600 wins and all the success, but I think the most important thing to me has been the relationships that I've had throughout the 600 wins. If you ever want to be humbled, you just do this job for a long time, and you realize that you better have good players, and when you do, you're a hero and a great coach, and when you don't, you're not. And a long time ago, I had a coach when I first started. It was at Southwest Missouri at that time, is now Missouri State. Tell me that. When I was trying to tell him what a great coach he was, he said, "I'm only as good as my players." And I was like, I don't know about that. But I learned, and I learned quickly. At Central Missouri, I had a lot of success. I went back to my alma mater. I didn't have a lot of success. Came back here, where I think most of you remember, I said I felt like I could load my gun equally with the guy I was shooting against, and I did. And thanks to 3 wonderful assistant coaches. One of them is Mike Nicholson, who's in the room right now. They provided me the opportunity to be successful at Missouri Western. But beyond the success, I think the friendships with administrators, coaches, community people have been way, way more important than winning 600 games with officials. You'd be surprised. I mean, I know you people who sit behind my bench think that I don't like those guys. But believe me, I think most of them would speak very highly of me, and I speak very highly of them. And I think I've always been able to put the game aside when it was over and have that relationship with them. So it's an end of an era. And for me, I always said one thing, that after 38 years, if you can go on your own terms, you've been pretty lucky. And I've been pretty lucky because I'm going on my own terms.
Questions?
Let me say just one more thing before, if you want to open it up. But I want to thank my daughter, Jill, for being here. My extended daughter and son-in-law, Steve and Wendy. And I think I've said this before, but I can't tell you how many times over the course of 25 years, well, I guess 15, that I wasn't so sure about how good our teams would be. And Patsy was always there and telling me that we would be good. And I'm so thankful to have you in my life. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry.
Anybody have questions, media?
Why now? Why after 25 years, and why did you make the decision right now that this would be your last year?
Well, I think primarily because I really wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to go through without. I don't want to say without the pressure, because it's always there. I mean, the pressure is always there. Believe me, and one of the things I said to the players, don't think for a second that I'm any lame duck or I'm changing, because I'm not. In fact, I'm closer to the way I started this year than I've ever been since I've been here. The way I started at Central Missouri when they thought I was nuts, and I probably was at that time, but. And I have assured them that I will be there too. I just think, knowing that, I'm ready for number one, but knowing that, I think I can enjoy this year. I think I will really enjoy it, and I have so far. I have a wonderful group of guys, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I just thought it would be better. I'm not for any. Don't misunderstand me. I am not for any rides around the conference. Okay, where some guy's going to. I go to Washburn and they give me a wheelchair or something like that. I don't like that crap. I don't want that necessarily. I know it'll be part of it, I'm sure, at a couple of different places. I'm sure going into Central Missouri will be a little bit tough for me this year, because it was a school that gave me my start. But I just felt like it would allow me to enjoy the season better.
Is this something you've been thinking about the last couple of years?
Well, I think so. I think, number one, or not. I mean, this program deserves to be back at the top, and that's where, over many, many years, that's where it's been. But we also live in a what have you done for me lately world, and lately we haven't been as good. Although people sometimes forget that we made the tournament in 2010. I mean, that was only 3 years ago, and if we'd happen to get back again, it would be 2 times in 4 years. So it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But I do feel like it needs to be back at the top. And I'm not saying I couldn't do that, but I think it's time for someone else to do it.
I remember back when Ben Hasselhoff was here, sorry, and
Well, the night I was introduced, I'll never forget that, who was doing the news, Steve? Parlett, Randy Parlett announced that Missouri Western had hired a losing coach. I know that. That was a great start. I mean, it made me really endure myself to St. Joe. I was like, whoa, boy, they're really excited about. Well, it meant like this. Very quickly, it started in Kansas City at the Final Four when I realized this job was open, and you know, I was. If you just bear with me for a second, when I left Central Missouri in '79, '80 and went to Valparaiso, I went at the worst possible time to go to what I would term a low major or a have-not at the D1 level. It was a bad time. If you trace history of basketball, you'll see that the separation of D1s from the low D1s to the high D1s just went crazy in the '80s. And I recall walking out on the floor against Digger Phelps at Notre Dame, my second year at Valparaiso, and looking out, Digger had 3 guys that went to the NBA that year playing at Notre Dame. And I looked out there and I said, I'm in deep trouble. I'm in really deep trouble. This gap had gotten so big. Keep in mind, when I played at Valparaiso, that we beat Purdue, we beat University Pacific, we beat a number of D1 teams. I was playing against Jerry Sloan. I played against Phil Jackson. But that gap in the 80s was tremendous. So when this opportunity presented itself, and I called Ed, and I had a couple of people, Bartow was one of them, to really, really support me in this. I was actually coming to a better job here than I had at Valparaiso. And for that, I will be forever thankful to Janet Murphy, to Ed, who hired me, for giving me the opportunity, to come here.
What factors influenced you to stay at Missouri Western for 25 years?
Well, mostly because I think I was humbled enough coming out of Valparaiso that I did have a couple opportunities, not great. Some of you in the room know the name Dennis Francione, but Francione was at Southwest Texas and tried to get me to take that job a couple years into my job here. And I was not about to, you start winning 24 games a year after you've struggled, for 8 years at Valpo. And I was, perfectly satisfied with being successful.
Was it more after you accomplished your 600th win, or was it more related to Coach Bartow's death that you wanted to make this decision?
Well, I think Gene's passing away kind of made me think about some things. When you're lucky enough, I also worked for a guy named Maury John at Drake, who was also one of the top coaches in the country, and I'm very fortunate with that. But I don't think it's the 600. I think it's just the feeling that it's time. When you're in this profession, I can't remember the last Thanksgiving or Christmas that I've enjoyed. Really enjoyed. Not that I don't have good people around me to enjoy it, but really enjoy it. Who's going to come back after Christmas? Are they going to be on time? What are we going to be like? It's like 2 different seasons. I look forward to that. I do. Between Patsy and I, between us, have 11 grandkids. We try to make it to a lot of things, but sometimes you can't because of the season.
What kind of effort did you try to do over the years to kind of stay in touch with the former players that you spoke about?
Well, I've always, been fortunate enough. A number of them have stayed close, and then, dating back, I know a lot of people aren't aware of this, but I had a player play for me at Central Missouri, for example. His name's Billy Finley, who's scored 2,800 points. He's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the MIAA, and will be forever. It'll never be broken. No one will ever do that again. Just imagine 2,800 points, and without the 3. Things like that, people like that. I think you all know the story of General Bray. Arnold Bray was on my first 2 teams at Central Missouri and went on to be a brigadier general. And one of the things that he's always told me is that when he was in special forces in the Army, that the guys were complaining about how tough it was, and he actually told them that, you know, you should have played college basketball for Smith. It wasn't, you know, this is no tougher than that. So, you know, I've stayed with a lot of them. I think the fact that I think 40 or 50 of them showed up last year when I won my 600. And remember, we're not talking about guys that are flying in all over you're not talking about Duke guys. We're talking about guys that don't have a lot of money and resources and everything that came back for that, and that meant a lot to me.
Coach, you mentioned that earlier that this is pretty difficult. How difficult was this? Were you wavering back and forth, going between, well, maybe I'll stick out another year, or was it a very hard decision?
I don't think so. And you know, you know, we don't know what the future is going to bring here this year, you know, regardless. But I think I was ready. I just think I was ready. And like I say again, I'm just going back to, I really want to, I just want to go through a year, I guess my last year, and enjoy it, and really, really cherish the moments and cherish the games, and not have that feeling all the time that, you know, it's the end of the world or whatever. And again, you know, going back to, I appreciate everything Missouri Western has done for me, and I want nothing but the best for this school, and I always will. I always will. It's a special thing. I mean, I can't tell you, you know, back in the early 2000s, you know, when Jerry was building his program, you know, when we were the dominant program here at Missouri Western, how many times he and Smitty and Ball and those guys would come up to Northwest to games and support us, and my relationship with the other coaches on the staff and my friendships, you know, it's just been great. It's been so special to me because we have a little bond here at Missouri Western. I think maybe building the new building has kind of separated us a little bit, so the bond's maybe not quite as close, but we do. We only have so many sports, and I think everybody, you know, tries to support each other and tries to help each other, and you know, that you don't find that very often. I mean, I've been other places where, you know, you don't want someone else to do something, or they get something and you want it. I don't think we've had that here, and I think I appreciate that.
Is there a year or a team that stands out over the years? Hopefully this year, but
yeah, you know, no. In all reality, not really. There's been good. It's the players, I think, on those teams that stand out to me, and all of them are special to me. You all know that over the years my recruiting has been African American kids out of the inner city. It's been my thing. I'm from Gary, Indiana. I grew up in Gary. I was playing against, I can't say African American. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm black. That's what I say in it, and that's how old I am, I guess. But I grew up playing against you know, great black players way before people were doing that. I mean, I didn't even realize it in the '60s. I mean, they weren't, you know, unless you were in inner city Chicago, Gary, Indianapolis, black and white players didn't play against each other. And I grew up with that, and so I think, especially when I came back here to Missouri Western, that became my thing, and trying to get those kids, you know, I hope the faculty or any faculty that are here would understand that I had a great education at Valparaiso, and I've worked hard, and so has Coach Nick, worked hard on trying to get our kids to understand the importance of that education and growing up. I think that's that, and I'm not being corny. I'm not trying to, you know, and I'm not trying to be a martyr, but that's way more important than the 600 wins. The 600 wins will go away, you know, but the relationships will never go away.
Coach, you mentioned you want to get this program back on top, and not that you can't do it, but is it more difficult now in this day and age, just from where you were before?
It's changed. Basketball has changed at the D2 level. One, we've doubled the number of teams that we had in the 90s and the early 2000s. It's now at 300 D2 teams. We had 140 some when I started, I think, and I think that's right. You know, it was much easier to get players. They were just more available to less people. Plus, I think we were kind of pioneers in really going the JUCO route so much, and now you find that most of the teams in the league have gone that way. And I actually think it's going to go back. I think it's going to probably go back in the years coming that you'll see the men's team recruit more high school kids and more D1 transfers that to be successful. But yes, so that's changed. The MIAA's not as good at the top as it was through the 90s when there were 4 or 5 really dynamite teams that were certainly all national. I'm not saying we're not, but the teams at the bottom of the MIAA are better because it's spread out more. So it's become harder to recruit that.
Well, you've had a lot of great players here over the years, and not that I want you to list them all top to bottom here, but just some of the guys that were really, really special players.
Well, in my first teams, obviously, Mike Cornelius and Mark Bradley. Sean Williams still in town. His son plays at Central now. Steve Hall. Almost that whole first team was so, Scotty Williams, Heath still in town. That group was, nobody expected us to, do anything. We came in the first year, won the league tournament, went to NCAA. Got to the finals against Southeast Missouri at that time, and all those guys, Darrell Wright, Drain Cobb, great teams, Von Zell. I don't know. Damon Bay, Larry Taylor, you all know, played with the Brazilian Olympic team this year. Nobody even wanted Larry. We ended up taking him, and it turned out to be such a wonderful kid. Damon Bailey, wonderful kid. Last year I had 2 really neat kids, Levante and TJ, 3 actually, Deontay. This year I think we've got some neat guys. So, that's the part that's fun. I mean, that's the part that I will miss the most is, I won't miss practices. I don't care what anyone says. And you talk about that crap, I will not miss practices. Although I probably enjoyed it more this year. I'm going to start working around the house. If I can get it upside down the right way, right, George? I was putting a shelf up in my office one day, and George Hayward walked in and said, "I think you have it upside down." And sure enough, I did. I don't know. I do know this. I will take a year to go watch games, especially in the MIAA, where I have no dog in the hunt, where I don't care who wins, and I can just sit there and eat a bag of, eat some popcorn and have a diet soda and watch the game and, go down and ask Kim Anderson, "How do you feel right now?" Because I feel great. I feel wonderful. And I think that, I'll do that. Certainly, I don't want to be in any way in anybody's way here at Missouri Western. I don't want to hang on. I don't want to walk down the hallways and have people say, "Oh God, here comes Smith." I don't want that, but I think I'll enjoy some games for a year or so.